The Incursion Invasion, the final episode of Alien Force Season 3, is structured like a war movie that suddenly forgets whose side you're on. A planet-scale invasion is unfurled in high definition. Military formations landing in disciplined rows, entire squadrons deploying at once, and an arsenal that renders previous threats like minor incidents. On screen, the incursion forces aren't just pushing forward, they demonstrate overwhelming numbers and discipline, with occupied territory extending over vast regions. For every defender, the show stacks evidence of futility. Resistance movements are overwhelmed by superior technology and tactical coordination. Precise word choice matters. The script makes clear the scale is massive, with no safe havens and governments forced into negotiations. The invasion's scale is measurable. Entire governments are sidelined, and major leaders are seen negotiating to protect survivors. It's at this point you're asking, if this is the worst-case scenario, why did collapse come so quickly? The turning point is depicted through a shift from military confrontation to psychological pressure. In a single scene, negotiation gives way to capitulation, and the episode portrays superior numbers, coordination, and technology as overwhelming to defenders. On its terms, many civilians and soldiers are marginalized by the overwhelming incursion. But the official explanation misses a dimension. It overlooks the instances where resistance persists through improvisation and tenacity. The cost of the event is shown in displacement and the disruption of normalcy. The invasion isn't just about loss, it's about the unsettling normalcy that follows, and the fact that every character is forced to negotiate with a world that moved on without them. Aggregor's absorption of the ultimate powers. If the Incursion Invasion was a disaster you could see from space, Aggregor's arc in Ultimate Alien, Season 1 presents a unique existential threat as he seeks ultimate power through absorption. The familiar beats of villain escalation are skipped entirely. Aggregor absorbs the powers of 5 unique aliens, each granting him separate and powerful abilities. Each absorption results in a visible transformation for Aggregor. The show never offers a vague villain upgrade. Instead, you see Aggregor unlock a diverse set of powers, including gravity and energy manipulation. The stakes aren't the world might fall, they're the world loses the rules that define it. Aggregor doesn't just threaten extinction, he fuses multiple ultimate powers into a single form, bypassing the original constraints that governed them separately. A specialist might object here. Isn't it possible that stacking unique abilities just raises complexity, not lethality? That a system overloaded with powers inevitably becomes unstable or vulnerable to countermeasures? The show answers with one short demonstration. Aggregor demonstrates mastery over his combined powers, overwhelming opponents who try to stop him. Evidence comes in direct challenges. Protagonists attempt every known reversal, including power removal and containment, but Aggregor resists every attempt to stop him, even when confronted by multiple opponents. This event doesn't just upgrade the villain, it reframes what the category of Deadliest event means. Absorption raises the stakes, presenting a hazard that threatens everything the heroes defend. Subscribe and tell us in the comments which Deadliest event you think was the most astonishing. Let's keep going. Vilgax's conquest of Earth. The stakes shift from cosmic theft to planetary war. Vilgax doesn't just threaten heroes, he succeeds where others only tried. In the main Ben 10 continuity, his conquest of Earth stands alone as the most methodical and relentless campaign against humanity. Instead, he studies weaknesses. Vilgax arrives with technology and tactics that dwarf anything faced previously. On screen, he disables defenses, unleashes destructive force, and, crucially, doesn't retreat after setbacks. Every time he's knocked back, he returns with upgrades and renewed forces, evolving his strategy because brute strength alone isn't enough. What makes Vilgax's conquest so merciless is its precise escalation. Unlike any other antagonist, the scale is measured not just in destroyed cities, but in how the show frames his victory. He doesn't just try. Researchers cite the hardest detail, though. Vilgax's success isn't a product of power gaps or convenient plot holes. He wins not just through overwhelming strength, but through exploiting systemic flaws. This is the line viewers repeat. Charmcaster's reality collapse. You could almost argue that previous conquerors at least relied on brute force or technology that could be countered, but that fails in the Charmcaster arc. Here, Power isn't about weapons, it's reality itself unraveling, and no amount of defense or strategy can stop it. During Omniverse's Charm School storyline, if you're keeping score, this is the turning point where magic breaks the fabric, not just the stakes. All of it is anchored not just in spellcasting, but in rituals that amplify her power to catastrophic levels. With each escalation, the show shifts from physical danger to existential threat. The arc frames this as an event so total, it unwrites continuity itself. And then it gets stranger. None of the usual safeguards hold. Magic here isn't a tool, it's a force so unchecked that the arc becomes a race against oblivion. Skeptics love to say, but magic always resets itself in Ben 10, nothing actually sticks. That's the usual defense, not here. The collapse is so fundamental, the arc doesn't just reset damage. And so, the contradiction resolves. In this storyline, power isn't only measured in cities conquered or lives lost, it's measured in worlds erased and Daigon's emergence. Suddenly, this isn't just a power that warps the world from afar, it's a threat so intimate, so present, that standing in its shadow feels like breathing poison. The word invasion barely covers it, the scale is specific. Here's the comparison that kicks up the stakes. Your standard world-ending scenario might be an antimatter bomb, maybe a cosmic entity locked behind a dimensional veil. The contrast isn't subtle. Most people assume that this kind of threat would automatically trigger every defensive mechanism ever built into the show's universe. Surely the safeguards would kick in, the hero pattern would take over, and everything would reset the moment the credits roll. But that expectation falls apart when you look at what actually happens. Established defenses fail. That leaves a question uncomfortably hanging in the air. So why did this one slip through? The answer isn't settled. The Forever Knight's Null Void Bomb. You've just watched a threat born out of breakdown. Now it's time for the opposite kind of failure, one that's engineered with precision, cold, and entirely intentional. The word eradicate gets thrown around a lot in Ben 10, but they're not relying on chaos or brute force. And you could argue that, on the surface, this is less catastrophic than mass obliteration. After all, but that point falls flat when you confront what's really at stake. The Forever Knights. No matter how precise the mechanism claims to be, Maltruant's timeline erasure. Nobody left the Null Void Bomb thinking the destruction of worlds was the upper limit. When the Master Chronosapien finally makes his move in Final Countdown, he isn't trying to conquer his own era or rewrite one dangerous event. Imagine waking up and not just finding your city gone, but realizing the city never formed, never burned, never mattered, because it never had a timeline to stand in. He targets the timeline itself, not an enemy, not a region, but the living scaffolding of existence that holds everything up. Every relationship, every memory, every hard-won lesson, or bitter regret. The decision to erase isn't limited. He reaches for the fundamental sequence of cause and effect, not just rewriting history, but unmaking the very conditions that make history possible. The result isn't a new world, or a better world, or a worse world. It's a world with blank pages where every story once was. No one can fight for a timeline they can't even detect, and Maltruant knows it. This isn't just memory holing a single event or shifting destinies. He sweeps away the basic connections, friendships that formed over dozens of episodes, rivalries that drove entire arcs, victories that defined characters. This isn't recovery or survival, it's waking up in a reality where all footprints are gone and all paths are erased. And what does that actually mean for an individual? No enemy to hate, no friend to save, no history to fix, just a hollow sense that the universe itself is missing. It's not the familiar comic trope where you switch a few key details, shuffle the lineup, and live with the new consequences. It's not a temporary shakeup or something the show teases before resetting everything with a holiday special. It's tempting to shrug and call this just another reset button, something standard for shows that always find a way out. But the specifics say otherwise. He isn't merely pruning history or tweaking outcomes, he's reaching in and scrubbing away the DNA of existence itself. And that empty gap isn't just the absence of death or suffering, It's the absence of any story, good, bad, or otherwise. The Annihilar's destruction. As bleak as Maltruant's timeline erasure gets, the Annihilar's doesn't just threaten what's already been lost. It obliterates the chance of any future, for anyone, anywhere, in one detonation. Ben 10 never blinked at universe-level threats before. Here, the stakes are so wide that even the concept of survival becomes irrelevant with one countdown. Its energy builds on screen, seconds tick down, and the horizon of risk isn't just spatial. The entire universe sits in its blast radius. This isn't cosmic tension or a symbolic threat. The risk doesn't just focus on a planet, a galaxy, or even a timeline. It's not an accidental power spike. Each component is built, each security breach is endured, and the idea of a hero will always save the day is put through its hardest test. It doesn't care about sides or narratives or who deserves to win. At some point, it's tempting to say it's all for show. Surely no creator would really let the bomb blow. Surely the whole purpose is to keep audiences right on the edge, but never go over. There's no safety net, no secret exit, and no plot armor thick enough to guarantee protection. The point is to court actual finality for characters and viewers alike. That tension isn't accidental,